Good morning. South Korea holds an emergency National Security Council meeting following the exchange of fire between Seoul and Pyongyang near the Western Sea border and stays vigilant. The repatriation of war dead who once were enemies. The remains of Chinese soldiers who fought against South Koreans head homeward bound after 6 decades. And the spare tire around your midline is a pain to get rid of. Don't give up, the doctors say, as there is hope for us yet. And meet the homegrown robot Hero and see the technology involved and functionality of what could be the wave of the future on Korea Today, Tuesday, April 1st, 2014.
From Arirang News, this is Korea Today.
And good morning. Thank you for joining us on Korea Today. I'm Kim Young alongside Kim Min-jung and Jin-ju.
Good morning. Early this morning at around 5 a.m., a magnitude 5.1 earthquake has been detected here in Korea near Chungcheongnam-do province.
That's right. The earthquake was felt by some in Seoul, Incheon, and the metropolitan area. Some buildings were shaken, but no major casualties at this point.
Now, a 5.1 magnitude, that is the second biggest since the year 1978. We are seeing more frequent earthquakes here on the peninsula, but luckily they're off the coast.
So it was definitely a frightening moment, but nothing compared to what the residents of Pyeongdo must have felt yesterday following North Korea's provocations, and that is our top story this morning. Let's kick things off with that story. Following the exchange of fire near the western maritime border between South and North Korea, Seoul's National Security Council gathered for an emergency meeting on Monday evening. The motives behind Pyongyang's latest round of provocations was the focal point of the discussion headed by the Presidential National Security Advisor, Mr. Kim Jang-soo. The committee also discussed the possibility of further aggravation by the North and Seoul's plans for a clear and firm response if provoked. Shortly after noon on Monday, North Korea launched a live fire drill involving about 500 artillery shells, 100 of which landed in waters near South Korea's Pyeongdo Island. The South immediately fired back some 300 shells, while thousands of residents on Pyeongdo Island were forced to evacuate during the 3-hour incident. Washington has strongly criticized Pyongyang's latest brinkmanship, calling it a dangerous and a deliberate decision to further escalate tensions.
100,000 people in the system.
The world's largest smartphone battery maker, Samsung SDI, says it will buy Tail Industries, another Samsung affiliate that makes electronic and chemical materials, in the latest restructuring move at Samsung Group, the country's biggest conglomerate. Samsung SDI said Monday the merged entity will be launched on July 1st through a stock swap. The company plans for it to become a global player in energy and materials with annual sales of more than 10 trillion won, or roughly $9.4 billion, which it aims to nearly triple by 2020. This is the latest in Samsung's restructuring efforts in recent years, in a move widely seen as Chairman Lee Gun-hee preparing for a transfer of ownership to his son and 2 daughters, who are the 3rd generation of the founding family.
Some of the remains of Chinese soldiers who fought against South Korean troops during the Korean War have been sent home last week after 6 decades of remaining in a foreign land. This has drawn much attention from the international community, as it was the repatriation of the war dead who were once enemy troops. And along with the repatriation, the so-called enemy cemetery where these war dead have been buried is also receiving more attention. Our Cheong-ju is at the site. Cheong-ju, could you give us some more details about the cemetery and the repatriation?
Yes, I'm at the enemy cemetery, which is located in Paju, Gyeonggi-do province. It's only 5 kilometers away from the demilitarized zone, and it's known as the only cemetery in the world that manages the remains of the war enemies. And also, as you can see here, this is where North Korean and Chinese soldiers were buried after the Korean War. And the reason behind such establishment comes after the protocol additional to the Geneva Convention's Article 34. It states that remains of the persons who have died during a combat shall be respected and grave sites to be maintained. So the South Korean government has been maintaining and following the protocol that has been abided by. And also it has recently repatriated the bodies of the Chinese soldiers in last week. And let's take a look. A repatriation ceremony for the remains of Chinese soldiers was held at Incheon International Airport last Friday. 437 nameless Chinese soldiers who were buried on the Korean peninsula after the Korean War were finally placed in their national flag-draped coffins and returned home.
I would like to thank South Korea for its proactive efforts and sincerity in dealing with this matter.
I hope this revives peace on the Korean peninsula, cooperation in Northeast Asia, and the spirit of world peace.
This breakthrough comes after South Korea and China summit back in June, when President Park Geun-hye offered to send the remains of the Chinese war dead home. 6 months later, the Korean Defense Ministry started excavating and making preparations for the transfer. As the remains were being placed in coffins, the Chinese government did not forget to thank the South Korean government for its exceptional respect.
The repatriation of the remains has been another major event since the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries. We will strive to take a major step forward and develop our strategic partnership.
Putting tragic history aside, the repatriation has opened up a new chapter of peace and reconciliation. Analysts say this will help strengthen bilateral ties between Seoul and Beijing.
The Chinese war dead symbolize the deep division and traces of war between South Korea and China in the initial stages of the Cold War. This shows the will that both governments have towards putting an end to this history. It signals their determination to develop their strategic partnership and move beyond the constraints created by the order during the Cold War.
This is not the first time that the remains of Chinese soldiers were repatriated. Between 1981 and 1997, 43 bodies were transferred to China through North Korea. But after Pyongyang refused to take a part in 1997, the operation had been suspended. Experts say the North will likely have a negative view on this recent repatriation.
North Korea will be nervous about warming ties between the South and China. Pyongyang does not want Seoul and Beijing to establish direct channels of communication and strengthen ties. It would want to maintain the Cold War paradigm in order to hold up its regime.
One of the reasons why this event receives international attention is because it was carried out directly between South Korea and China, without going through North Korea or the United Nations.
So I think that this event can enhance the South Korea's status as a concerned party, and it can be a very good example that Korea can also play a very positive role in handling the Korean Peninsula issue in cooperation with China.
Meanwhile, various media outlets in China and Hong Kong highlighted the arrival of their war dead. Especially the Chinese media reported that South Korea transferred the remains with due respect and formality.
Not only the Chinese media in Korea, but also various other media outlets from China and Hong Kong are covering the event. Chinese people have a lot of gratitude towards the South Korean president and its government.
The repatriated Chinese soldiers' remains have arrived in Shenyang, Liaoning province and Dandong, Hubei province, where China has the state cemeteries for the war dead. The number of Chinese soldiers killed during the Korean War is estimated to be over 110,000. The South Korean government plans to continue to repatriate Chinese remains if more are discovered ahead of China's annual tomb sweeping day, when families visit the grave sites of their ancestors. There is Chinese saying that no matter how far you travel like the rain, one must return to their motherland. And this saying has become the reality for China. And the Chinese families of the war dead and also the Chinese people are deeply moved by the event. Back to you, Jinju.
Right, and this can also be considered an example of countries showing respect on a humanitarian level, even towards previous wartime enemies. Now, it seems there needs to be more government efforts to send the remains of Chinese soldiers that have yet to be repatriated, and furthermore, North Korean soldiers as well. What are some of possible measures Seoul can work on?
So, well, Junju, as you can see, there are remains of the North Korean soldiers here and some Chinese as well. And we need joint efforts to repatriate the remains of the soldiers who sacrificed themselves for the Korean War. And it is a responsibility that two Koreas carry. And as I said before, the joint efforts are needed here, Junju.
We do hope that government-level talks between the two Koreas on this matter will resume sooner than later. Thank you, Hyung-ju, for that report. That was our Choi Young-ju reporting live from the North Korean and Chinese soldier cemetery in Paju.
And as you heard in our top story, the exchange of fire between the two Koreas across the NLL has prompted an emergency National Security Council meeting. And to talk more about the latest round of provocation by North Korea is Dr. Kim Cho-ru from the Korea Institute for Defense Analyses. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
Now, Doctor, one thing that separates this provocation from the rest, I think, is the fact that North Korea actually announced this. Now, what's the motive behind this? Can you tell us about this?
Yes, indeed, they announced before their provocative action. But thing is, they announced it just 4 hours before, and the designated spot was not clear all over the northern limit line, which means overall the North Korean action is premeditated provocative action. It's not the normal artillery firing drills. It's not drills, it's provocations. The other thing is they know how to getting back to the limelight from the Europe Security Summit to the Korean Peninsula. So what I mean is they know how to use the selection of timing. On Monday morning, they know how to make a big splash with their artillery fire, still constrained how to control the situation. So overall, North Korea's premeditation is very sly fox scheme to make a big attention from the international community. Just right after the threatening of the new forms of series of nuclear tests.
And using the right day of the week to do so.
Yes.
Now, South Korea fired around 300 artillery shells right back and also scrambled fighter jets as well. Now, is this a defensive move or is this a no-nonsense message?
South Korea's response, I would say, sophisticated rules of engagement. Whatever North Korea's provocations is not retaliatory actions with a full scale or 10 times, 100 times. We would like to keep the proportionality and the right magnitude of response instead of overwhelming, just bombardment with the lots of rounds. So, but the one thing clear sending message to North Korea is scrambling F-15K is different story. We are still very firm, but we have sophisticated measures to respond to whatever North Korean provocations. The F-15K on the combat posture means if things next comes worse, we'd like to strike with supporting elements and even commanding facilities. It's a very strong message to North Korea.
Okay, so this is a strong message of showing that we will retaliate. Now, at the same time, when you think back to even a rhetoric by North Korea got us shaken up here and there, right? But even the Kospi actually went up. The stock markets showed no shift. Is there a chance that we could be maybe a little too unworried, maybe unconcerned?
We shouldn't be panicked with this kind of a series of provocations. They fired Nodong and Dapodong, a whole lot of artillery fire. But the one thing is we've been trained a little bit, Korean stock market, Korean economy, even world perception toward North Korea is they fully aware North Korea is a losing game and they've been cornered all the isolations. So the stock market stable sends out to the international community, yes, indeed, the Korean situation is still unstable, but the overwhelmingly the South Korean Park Geun-hye government's attitude and response posture is very stable. I think we shouldn't be panicked with this situation. But upcoming new type of fourth nuclear test is a different story. It
Okay.
really happened.
Now, speaking of that fourth nuclear test, that possible fourth nuclear test, now the North Korean regime claimed that they have an unimaginable new type of nuclear test that's waiting. And some analysts also say that evidence shows that North Korea is working on infrastructure for not just one test, but a series of systematic tests. What's your thoughts on this?
It's very likely. Unfortunately, it's very likely. They showed us that for the last 3 nuclear tests, and starting from 2 plutonium tests and possibly uranium. What's next? And they would like to, show off their capacity. Overall, they would like to be recognized from the international community as a nuclear weapon state. Why they're firing off all the delivery system, Nodong and even artillery fire? If things go wrong, they'll make a big blaming to the North Korean society, the international society. One thing clear is they're operationally ready to execute this new type of a series of nuclear tests. But when and how, the timing selection is totally up to Kim Jong-un's mindset. And Kim Jong-un is, strangely enough, to my mind, much made in his basketball team coach, and they are losing game. They have selected a whole lot of strange tactics to reverse the course. So the timing is correlated to the Chinese response. Chinese Xi Jinping fully acknowledged President Park Geun-hye's argument about the unification policy. So China's pressure is very critical viewpoint in this new development in the Korean Peninsula.
Okay, so the Chinese factor as well as influence is going to play a very big influence. Now, what's the setback on the whole trust-building policy of the Park Geun-hye government? Now, she's been, for the past year, she's been carrying this trust-building policy around and with word about reunification, denuclearization. Does this set everything back to square one?
I think the President Park Geun-hye's announcement, proclamation, declaration toward North Korea at the Dresden, Germany, was very clear. Park Geun-hye administration has been consistent in dealing with North Korea. If you choose the right course of action, would fully support the even infrastructure of North Korea. But if you make a wrong decision, you'll pay the price. Park Geun-hye's principled step-by-step approach, even she offered new agenda toward North Korea. But they've selected the wrong cause. In that sense, Park Geun-hye's consistent. She would not step back to the reverse side, the other side of the action. I think the Park Geun-hye's new selection is fully dependent upon the new developments right after the joint military actions, which will end April 18th. We have to wait and see. It's very likely to Park Geun-hye's initiative to going back to the new level of high-level talks, or the going back to the negotiating table of the six-party talks.
Okay, well, the joint military drills, that is about the time when North Korea does speak up its rhetoric, right?
Indeed.
All right, Dr. Kim, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Good morning. Now let's run through the front pages of your newspapers. And as can be expected, running on the front pages of this morning, you heard about it also in the headlines earlier too, as well as closely just a few minutes ago. But we'll first have a look at it on 중앙일보 here. The headline says 100 rounds come across from the north. The south pays back with 300 shells. Now, the two Koreas exchanged artillery fire across the western maritime border yesterday after the north staged a live fire drill, sending artillery shells into southern waters. And here it says that the north fired about 500 rounds of artillery shells into the waters north of the northern limit line in the West Sea from 12:15 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. And these 7 points here, which the circled numbers, they represent the bodies of water where the North had fired into, which were also the designated fire areas by the North in their earlier announcement yesterday morning. And in fact, most of the artillery shells were fired toward the second point here near the northern part of Baekneungdo Island. Now, after some 100 rounds fell in this area, which is south of the NLL, and as you can see, the NLL is depicted by the white line here, the South Korean military shot back about 300 artillery shells into the North Korean waters with K9, the K9 self-propelled howitzers, as well as the dispatched F-15K fighter jets near the maritime border, as you can see here on the picture on the right. And on to the Joseonilbo here, it's covering the same top story. And the headline reads, a day after threats of nuclear test, North Korea provokes with artillery shells across the NLL. And just a day after raising the possibility of further nuclear tests, the North had engaged in the provocative acts just yesterday, leading to the artillery fire exchange. And now this exchange had prompted South Korean residents of border islands to take shelter. And in the picture here they are, the residents of Baekneungdo Island headed to temporary shelters. They're nervously watching the news for updates regarding the breaking news. Fortunately, no casualties or injuries were reported. The caption explains that by late afternoon at about 4:30 p.m., about 4,000 residents of South Korea's 5 western border islands, they returned to their homes after the military had lifted an emergency order that it issued about 4 hours earlier. And moving on to Gyeongyang Shinmun, once again, the same top story here. This one is titled, North Korea shells 100 rounds south of the NLL. The South fires back 300 rounds. And this article adds that North Korea had taken the unusual step of informing the South of such live fire drills as it announced so at about 8 a.m. yesterday. And in the meantime, an emergency meeting at South Korea's Presidential National Security Council, or NSC, was convened yesterday evening. Now, the Standing Committee of the NSC was briefed on the situation by the Defense Ministry, and they discussed the North's motives behind its latest provocations. The government decided to maintain close watch and readiness to prepare against the possibility of further provocations by North Korea and make full preparations for a strong response in the event that the North provokes the South again. And finally, let's go on to some different news here regarding local business away from all the North Korean issue. And this one is about Shin Jong-gyun, a salaryman here in the country. And the headline says, the legend of salaryman Shin Jong-gyun. And just to give you a bit of a background, yesterday a total of almost 200 companies in Korea reported for the first time the salaries of more than 500 top executives, although such reports are filed annually. And Samsung Electronics, the world's largest mobile phone maker, paid the highest wages to non-owner family company executives among conglomerates. And this particular story is about Shin Jong-gyun, head of the company's information technology and mobile division, who earned 6.2 billion won just last year. And the article is giving light to the hard efforts put on by the business heavyweight Shin, who is a humble man, in fact, without a splashy background. Shin said he used to work 72 hours straight without sleep when he was younger, proving to be a tenacious worker. And he says this is in part due to the work ethic of Samsung. Being a productive outcome results in a worthwhile reward or compensation. And the Daily adds that more companies will be created and more developments in the economy will be made with more such legendary workers. And that was a look at your newspaper headlines for this Tuesday. And coming up are the stock numbers from Monday.
Well, today happens to be the April Fool's Day.
Yes,
and
it is.
I wonder if the weather is going to play some jokes on us.
For today's weather forecast, we have our Chun Chung-cho standing by.
Outdoors, that's right. She joins us from outdoors. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, guys. With temperatures way above the annual average, the entire nation is becoming blanketed by flowers in full bloom. Today, clear skies are expected due to a high pressure that's sitting on top of the West Sea. However, later in the afternoon, the level of fine particulate matter will rise 2 to 3 times above normal in the central region. Let's take a closer look at today's forecast around the peninsula. Do take note of the big difference between highs and lows, and temperatures in general are similar or slightly higher than yesterday as well. This warm weather will persist until Thursday, when spring showers around the central and northern regions will bring down the temperatures a bit. That's all I have for the weather forecast. Back to you, Min-jung, in the studio.
Some hopeful leads from the weekend have run into yet another dead end in the search for the missing Malaysian airliner. For details, we'll turn to Eunice Kim, who's joining us from the news center. Good morning, Eunice. Another disappointing day for the search teams.
Good morning, Min-jung. That's right. I'm afraid I don't have much good news here. What appeared to be a promising lead, 4 floating orange items spotted from the air over the weekend. They were identified and recovered yesterday and turned out to be fishing gear. No other substantial leads yet. 10 aircrafts and 10 ships zigzagged over the southern Indian Ocean yesterday as the Australian Navy vessel, the Ocean Shield, made its voyage to the search zone. It's equipped with devices that can detect pings from the black box flight recorders, and the hope is that we'll have a tighter search zone by the time the Ocean Shields arrives later this week.
Meanwhile, the UN's highest court has ruled that Japan must stop its whaling program near Antarctica. Now, tell us more about this story.
Right, we're talking about their whaling program in the Southern Ocean, which Japan has claimed was for scientific research purposes. Australia, though, disagreed and brought the case before the International Court of Justice. Arguing the program was commercial whaling in disguise, and the UN court agreed in a 12-4 judgment. It found the claim to be unsubstantiated. The presiding judge, Peter Tomka of Slovakia, said the program had limited scientific output since its inception in 2005, while it killed 3,600 minke whales and a number of fin whales. The World Court issued an immediate cancellation of all whaling permits under the so-called scientific program, a legally binding decision Japan said it would accept, albeit with disappointment.
I can almost hear some whales flapping with joy there.
Right. It is certainly a big victory for anti-whaling folks. And the court also has suggested that Japan reconsider a similar program in the northern Pacific. But of course, this case did not have jurisdiction over that.
All right. Well, thank you, Eunice, for that.
You bet.
And still ahead on Korea Today, the lighter your clothes get, the more conscious many get about their waistlines. Abdominal obesity, though, is not just about those looks. It has further implications for your health. We take a look at some options when it comes to making that belly nice and flat. Stay tuned.
And I am looking very much forward to that segment with Min-jung. We'll get an idea about how to get rid of the belly fat there. Now, you can't always believe what you're looking at, and Im Yoon-hee joins us this morning with a couple of art exhibitions which prove exactly that. Good morning. But you can't believe all the belly fat that I have.
Good morning. So, happy April Fool's Day. I'm sorry I don't have a joke for you today, but I do have a couple of artists who like to play jokes, I guess, on their viewers. And so they take their works and they kind of trick the viewer. And so with that said, let's take a look at a couple of art exhibitions here in Seoul. The slight yellow tinge and the faded appearance of the individual. These pictures look years old, but take a closer look. This picture of Kim Yeon-ah, the Ice Queen of Korea, looks as if it's weathered a few decades, but it can't be more than a couple years old. Hwang In-gi is an artist. His medium, photographs, along with various other items of life. He uses techniques to make them appear much older than their actual age, making people think twice about the fleetingness of time.
After today, yesterday suddenly becomes so precious, and everything becomes more meaningful.
But some artists take a different approach to distorting visual perception. Artist Han Kyung-woo tricks the eyes over and over again. These look like the playful hand shadows children grow up with, but are really animals ironically meant to look like hands. And although he doesn't play with time, he blurs the borders of reality and illusion with his works that question our tendencies of fixed notions.
Coincidentally, I was home and saw a black trash bag and had an abstract idea of transforming this black bag into some kind of marker. So I chose to use plastic bags and created these works.
Sometimes the eyes really do play tricks on the mind, whether intended or not. These artists show just how much room there is in the mind for the imagination.
Okay, now one of those exhibitions took place at the Seoul Art Space. I understand that they've played an active role in supporting the contemporary art industry here in Korea.
So the Seoul Art Foundation is one of the most influential awards that they give out in the contemporary art community here. And so they created this space to allow these winners to have their solo exhibitions.
Okay, so tell us about the actual winner of this award.
So the artist you just saw in this report, he is one of the grand prize winners from the 2011 award. And so he was allowed to present his solo exhibition here at this exhibition here in Cheongdam.
Okay, it's really amazing what you could do with just ink and a piece of paper as well as photographs. Thank you very much, Uni, for that.
My pleasure.
And happy April Fool's Day.
Happy April Fool's Day.
All right, still ahead on Korea Today, robots. Now, robot technology has been evolving over the years, and a Korean robot makes a splash on the red carpet at an Oscars event. What had the media buzzing about this smart service robot, Firo? We invite him to the studio to check out what features dazzled Hollywood celebrities and look into the tech.
So what has kept the online community buzzing since yesterday? We'll answer that question on News Sum Up today.
That's right. First, let's check out the 5 hottest search words for yesterday. We start off with news on North Korea firing artillery near the northern limit line as part of military drills, making a lot of people concerned. Then we have LA Dodgers Ryu Hyun-jin, who threw 7 scoreless innings. The salaries of executive directors at large companies were revealed yesterday.
Well, let's take a look at those staggering salaries. Samsung, LG, SK, and other large companies. For the first time, they unveiled the amount that their executive directors are paid, and all eyes were on those figures.
Right. Topping the list is Choi Tae-won of SK Group, receiving more than $28 million a year. Number 2 is Pyongan LNC's former vice president Kim Hyung-sup at almost $90 million. Up third is Hyundai Motors' Chung Mong-gu, who receives $13 million a year, and there were roughly 10 executives who are paid a near $10 million a year.
Wow, that is a large number. This news comes with the newly introduced capital market law that requires companies to disclose the salaries of their executives who receive more than roughly $500,000. And these eye-popping, just mind-blowing numbers are said to be anywhere from 200 to 500 times the average salary of a regular employee in Korea, just like you and me.
Yes, there was a lot of debate online yesterday about whether the salary range is appropriate and if companies should take these kind of opinions into consideration. Now, moving on, the warm spring is here, but there are a lot of days when it's actually hard to enjoy the nice weather because of the yellow dust. The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention released some health tips yesterday on how to prepare for the yellow dust.
Now, a lot of it is really common sense. The center recommended that people with respiratory conditions, as well as the elderly and children, refrain from heading out when there's a dust storm coming, and also to wear a mask, especially designated mask when heading out.
Right. They also suggest wearing glasses or sunglasses instead of contact lenses, and keeping yourself hydrated is also important with the recommended amount of water, at least 1.5 liters a day.
And maybe have samgyeopsal,
yes,
but
that's the way here in
don't quote me
Korea.
on this. Well, that's all we have for our news sum up today. More coming up tomorrow.
And the weather is getting warmer and we are approaching summer. I know we just got into spring, but we're already talking about it because the temperatures have been like summer, right? And with people getting ready to hit the beaches and to show a little more skin, I think people are concerned about their belly fat. I know I am, and I know you aren't. That's
yes,
for sure.
I was tuning in to see if you said you are or you aren't. I'm not.
That's one of my biggest worries, and that's why I'm very happy to be here today with Dr. Alice Hyun-Kyung-Dan from Samsung Medical Center.
Good morning.
As well as Dr. Shin-Suk from the Daegu-hu Oriental Medical and Wellness Clinic. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right.
Well, let's first look at, before we really get into and answer all those questions about our waistline, let's take a look at some of the key facts about the waistline.
Take a look.
As the weather gets warmer, more people are engaged in outdoor activities. And with this comes growing interest in diets. At the center of attention is how to lose belly fat. Abdominal obesity can lead to strokes, high blood pressure, diabetes, and other chronic diseases, so it's extremely important to lose belly fat. In Western medicine, abdominal obesity is thought to be caused by excessive eating, lack of exercise, smoking, and other complex reasons. While in Korean traditional medicine, a low metabolism, which leads to an accumulation of fat in the stomach, is believed to be the cause. How to reduce your waistline with the right methods. We bring you more details on how to go about it.
Okay, so I will come clean. I am actually worried about my abdominal obesity. I may be slim, but
April Fools.
That too. But no. Seriously, you can look slim, but be a little obese in this area, right?
Right. So abdominal obesity is defined as a waist circumference greater than 90 centimeters in men or greater than or equal to 85 centimeters in women. Those are the measurements for Korea. The way that it's measured is that it should be done after an overnight fast in the morning, standing straight with your arms to the side. After expiration, and you shouldn't be sucking in when it's done, and it should be measured about 2 finger breadths right above the hip bone. And so using these measurements, you can tell whether or not you have abdominal obesity.
Is that the same way that in Korean traditional medicine that obesity is measured, or abdominal obesity?
Yes, I totally agree with her. Also, there are different types of fat. So fat accumulated in the thighs and the buttocks are usually subcutaneous, which is from lack of circulation. Whereas fat in the abdominal area, which makes the apple shape, is largely visceral, and it's from overeating and heavy drinking.
Okay, so I've been to those chimjilbangs every now and then. I see some ladies out there, they're squeezing their fat. I mean, they're just really squeezing it, and they're saying that massaging it helps get rid of that belly fat on the outside. Does this work? Because I don't think so.
Okay, so targeted exercise, such as abdominal crunches, sit-ups, they may tone the muscles in the abdominal area, but they don't necessarily decrease the fat. And also body massages, it doesn't matter what technique you use or what substance is actually applied to the skin when the massage is done, that has not been proven to decrease your waist size on a permanent basis.
So abdominal massages by stimulating certain acupuncture points have been found successfully to reduce constipation and abdominal pain, also increase bowel movement. However, like Dr. Dan mentioned, there's no rapport on weight loss and body massages.
Okay, well, speaking of the abdominal, not abdominal, but cleansing,
the bowel
like bowel movements,
right.
constipation, apparently that leads to belly fat as well. What's your take on that?
Increasing the movement of the bowels doesn't improve weight loss. That's because most calories are absorbed in our body before reaching the large intestine. If colon cleansing has any effect, however, it has likely less to do with the toxins rather than the impact on the nervous system. Reflexes in the bowels affect the entire nervous system. So a wide range of symptoms caused by constipation can be relieved by enemas.
Oh, okay. So enemas do help here and there too.
They might, to some degree. So the use of cathartics, laxatives, enemas, they may lead to a flatter tummy temporarily. But they're not a method
no effect
for
on the fat.
they're not a permanent weight loss solution. Also, if you use these medicines on a frequent basis, your gut will get dependent on them, and that can actually lead to constipation. Sometimes bloating is the problem in a bulging belly. And so dealing with the causes of abdominal gas can actually be helpful in these situations.
Okay, of course, proper exercise as well as a healthy diet is the means to be healthier and look great. But we'll get a look at a couple of options in Western medicine as well as Korean traditional medicine.
In order to tackle abdominal obesity, it's important to exercise regularly and have a healthy diet. In order to target belly fat more specifically, you can receive cool sculpting, body line treatment, and more. Recently, in Western medicine, a method called liposonic is being used to help remove stubborn fat areas like love handles. It's a non-invasive treatment that uses high-intensity focused ultrasound to penetrate fat tissue and eliminate fat. Recently, endermology treatments, which break up cellulite in the abdomen, are also receiving attention.
An endermology uses two rollers and a suction device between them to apply strong vacuum sound pressure and circulation movements on the skin and tissue, and this stimulates the lymphatic vessels and blood vessels to improve edemas and internal heat and stress. That in return improves the effect of fat breakdowns.
In Korean traditional medicine, the patient's body type is first examined and then herbal acupuncture is used on certain pressure points. Not only that, hip correction is also carried out to get the body posture right, which can lead to a loss in abdominal obesity.
When you look at the hips, if they're slanted in the frontal direction, it's called 전만, while if it's slanted backward, it's called 후만. 전만 can cause circulation problems in the lower body and lead to lower body obesity. And in the case of 후만, circulation in the upper body declines, which could lead to upper body obesity.
Herbal medicine is also prescribed to help stimulate circulation in the body and enhance the breaking down of fat.
It's interesting that hip correction can actually reduce abdominal obesity. Now, tell us about a posture that can maybe help expedite the procedure.
You tell us, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, so the core exercise is very important because it can strengthen and tone the underlying muscles. So the first is you can stretch your core muscles by lying on your back and then bend your knees and bring them towards your chest. And then the second is a bridge, is a classic core exercise. So you lie on your back and bend your knees bent, and then you can lift, you can tighten your abdominal muscles.
Like a fetal position.
Kind of like crunches, right?
Position?
Makes a bridge. So you lift your hips that can align with the knees and the shoulders.
Okay, like an arch.
Right, yes.
Okay.
All right.
And we just, a lot of questions that we answered, but some final tips maybe that you want to share with our viewers.
Right, so with the aging process, the distribution of fat in our body changes, and unfortunately muscle mass usually decreases, making it harder to stay in shape. We know that abdominal obesity is related to a complex interplay of genetics, ethnicity, calorie nutrition balance, and hormones as well. One time of day where it's especially hard to control your calorie intake tends to be at night. So I generally advise my patients not to eat past 8 p.m. because they're setting themselves up for taking in a lot of sugar, fat, and maybe alcohol, and this gets converted straight to triglycerides, and that can get converted straight to abdominal obesity. And so it's not proven that eating late at night causes abdominal obesity, but certainly willpower is at a minimum, so that would be one final point.
All right, some of these maintenance, I think, is the best thing. And if you do have some of those trouble spots, I guess the options that we saw could be an option. Thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us.
Thank you to both of you.
Thank you, Dr. Shin.
You.
Thank you.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off in the LPGA, where the world #1 LPGA golfer Park In-bi is set to lead a group of 4 South Korean golfers in July at the inaugural International Crown. With the international event taking place for the first time, 8 nations will battle it out, with top 4 ranked golfers from each nation coming together from July 24th to the 27th. And with Park In-bi leading a group that consists of 6th-ranked Yoo So-yeon, 11th-ranked Chen Na-yeon, and 15th-ranked Kim In-kyung, they hope to prove Korea's dominance in the LPGA. And shifting over to the major leagues, where the LA Dodgers and the San Diego Padres kicked off the U.S. opening day in the majors. And with Clayton Kershaw out, Lee Hyun-jin took the mound, looking for his 2nd win of the season. And what a brilliant game by the South Korean lefty as he pitches 7 innings, giving up just 3 hits, no runs, while striking out 7 Padres hitters. But the Dodgers offense gives him just 1 run to work on, as Brian Wilson gives up 3 runs in the 8th inning, giving Lee Hyun-jin a no decision in the 3-1 loss to the Padres. And staying in baseball, but back here in the nation, with the Lotte Giants and the Hanwha Eagles rained out this past Saturday. They made up that game on Monday. Of course, going into the game here, man on second base, Kim Tae-gyun singles to center, and the Hanwha Eagles take an early 1-0 lead. Leading off the 4th inning, here's Chung Hyun-suk, drives this one deep, and there it goes. A solo shot makes it 2-0 Hanwha. But rally time for the Lotte Giants 6th inning here. Kang Min-ho with a man on, and there it goes. Back. Gone a 2-run shot, and it's tied 2-2. Next play, man on third, Moon Gyu-hyun, and an RBI double to right makes it 3-2 before Lotte scores 3 more times for a 6-2 lead. 7th inning, this time up 7-2, 2-man on. Chung-hoon sends this one to deep right center, a 2-run triple, and it's 9-2. Gonna fast forward to the 8th inning this time, and here he is once again. Kang Min-ho is 2nd on the night, and a solo shot as the Lotte Giants crush the Hanwha Eagles 11-2. And that's gonna wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
One of the largest gatherings of Hollywood film stars is the Oscars. Ahead of the main event at the 24th Oscar viewing show, many actors stepped into the spotlight, but among them was another special guest.
The robot's name is Future Robot, so we call it Firo. It's from South Korea.
It was none other than the Korean-made robot, Pyro.
Know when you're done thinking.
At the event, Pyro chatted with actors using its foreign language service, and celebrities lined up to take photos, drawing in a lot of attention. We invite into the studio the robot in the spotlight, Pyro.
Now, as you saw in this video clip, we have this Korean-made robot, Firo, joining us here in the studio, and Mr. Kim Dae-hoon from Future Robots to tell us all about this robot. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
So, could you first introduce Firo to us and the viewers?
Sure. Firo is HRI-based intelligent service robot, and it supports meta-communication technology. HRI stands for Human Robot Interaction, and the meta-communication means kind of neologism that support connect the people and big data and robot interactively.
Okay, so this is an interactive robot. It's meant for information exchange for humans and general. But now, this is the first time that a robot actually walked the red carpet at an Oscars event. How did this come to be?
Actually, a few robots invited by the committee of the Night of Stars, who has hosted the Oscar viewing show in 24 years. That show happens 2 or 3 hours ahead of the main Academy Award in Los Angeles. Actually, it took place in the Beverly Hills Hilton. It was very hot.
All right. So before we look into this Firo, let's first get a more detailed look into what technologies and functions Firo has to offer to us.
Puro is a smart service robot created from homegrown technology and can display various facial expressions.
안녕하세요. 제 이름은 퓨로입니다.
Puro is 155 centimeters in height and weighs 75 kilograms. In the facial area, it is equipped with technology that allows for face and voice recognition. Attached to the torso is a large touchscreen. Also on the body, there is a motion recognition sensor that can detect people's movements. Puro comes with a display screen that helps guide people. Using the touchscreen, users can watch videos and check the paths of movement. Also, it can provide language services in 30 different languages.
안녕하세요. konnichiwa. Ni hao. Hello.
Another important function allows it to follow people around as they move and provides guidance. While doing so, they receive information through their sensors when they reach a specific location. Not only that, it can recognize people and take them to specific locations, so it can act as a guide in exhibition halls or at venues for events.
Using markers that are set up, the robot uses an internal device to detect them and move accordingly to a preset route.
However, there's more to this robot than just simple guiding functions. There's also a function that allows you to be the star of a movie by fitting your face into a movie poster. And you can also take a picture and use your own photo on the display system.
In the future, we are going to add a technology where the robot will be able to recognize people's gender and age and provide appropriate information.
Born from homegrown technology, users can look forward to much more in the future from Puro.
All right, so I'm just hanging out with my new friend Furo. Very cute, a little bit creepy at that. I'll show you how to make it even creepier.
Hey, don't be mean.
I'll show you how to make it even creepier. But you can actually, you know how we saw in the VCR in the video there, we could put your face on there. So we'll do that and just creep it out a little bit more. Let's get in this weird position here. There you go. And then
Look at the camera on my head.
Okay, come on. All right, there it is. And, well, we can actually do that. We can take pictures over there. I can't seem to figure out how to exactly get it up there, but that
You know
is
what?
one of the ways that
Let
you can
me
put a
gi-
picture on here.
Let me give it a try because I know how to do that. The robot avatar, let me try this. Okay, maybe it doesn't like your face. Take photo. 1, 2, 3, cheese. And then apply.
Wow.
There you go. Now the robot
That's
is
the one.
It's turned
That's
into
right. It
Ninja.
has become the mini me. Look at this. I want a close up of this.
See, it would have been just terrible, too creepy if my face was on there. So there you go. Hi, little Minjung.
Right, exactly. We're like twins, right?
So,
This is pretty neat. And this robot can actually follow you around as you go through with this area. That's really interesting. Tell us about that technology as well.
The robot has some algorithm and a database, and the camera recognizes people's face and remember the face and skeleton and even the color of clothes.
Oh, wow.
And follows around.
Okay, so it has face recognition and image recognition as well.
Exactly.
So we can also carry out a conversation with that robot
That's right.
as well.
I'm not sure which one I'm supposed to carry on this conversation with, but I could say, hello, how are you? Which one?
Hollywood.
Oh, there it is. Nice to meet you, too. Thank you very much for being here. What's it like being on TV?
Awesome.
All right.
Well, it's pretty smart. It actually responds to your questions.
There
Wow.
you go. And it can follow you around.
How does Furo understand what we say and
It's some technology, TTS, text to speech, and it has some, as I said, algorithm and a database to match the word depending on what the question is.
Aha, very interesting.
Sounds great.
Sounds
All right,
great.
well, Doctor, thank you so much
We'll
for
talk
bringing
with the
Furo
robot
aboard.
more after you leave. So thank you, Doctor, for
Thank you.
that. All right, that just about does it for this edition of Korea Today.
we'll see you back here tomorrow at 7 a.m.
Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.